The camera was rolling. The lights were bright. The studio was buzzing with anticipation. Millions were watching live. But no one, absolutely no one expected what was about to happen next. Denzel Washington, a man known for his poise, strength, and unwavering control on screen and off, sat silently for a moment, visibly shaken. His lips quivered. His usually steady voice faltered. Then, in a moment that would go viral across the world within minutes, Denzel Washington broke down and cried on live television. But what caused this rare, powerful emotional moment? A phone call. One call. From a man thousands of miles away. Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young revolutionary and president of Burkina Faso. The segment began like any other. Denzel was on a major talk show promoting his latest project, a humanitarian film highlighting the power of leadership, integrity, and sacrifice. The conversation had been light, touching on career highlights, his family, and the profound impact of his roles in films like Glory, Training Day, and Fences. Then, the host paused, looking directly into the camera and said, "Denzel, we have a very special surprise for you. Someone deeply inspired by your work, and whose work you might find equally inspiring, wanted to say something. Please stay with us." What followed was a moment that would send chills down the spine of anyone watching. On the screen appeared the calm, humble face of Captain Ibrahim Traoré, dressed in a simple military uniform with a Burkina flag behind him. He began speaking, not as a politician, but as a man moved deeply by another man's spirit. "Brother Denzel," he said with a quiet reverence, "you don't know me personally, but your work has been a guiding light, not just for me, but for millions of Africans who believe in truth, justice, and the dignity of every man." Denzel's eyes widened. You could see the surprise, the curiosity. He leaned in, but then Traoré continued, his voice rich with sincerity. "When I was a young man trying to understand the weight of responsibility, the burden of leadership in a world that often demands compromise, I watched you. I watched how you carried yourself. Not just in the roles you played, but in how you spoke, how you stood for what was right, even when it was not popular." The room fell completely silent. Denzel's shoulders began to tremble slightly. He swallowed hard. "But it wasn't just inspiration," Traoré said. "It was a blueprint, a voice that told us we too can lead, we too can rise, we too can resist corruption, neo-colonialism, and fear. In Africa, your words have echoed across cities, villages, and rebel-held zones. We don't just see you as an actor, we see you as a symbol of defiance and moral clarity." And that's when it happened. Tears welled in Denzel's eyes. For a man who had spoken about emotional discipline his entire career, the rawness of this moment— I don't even know what to say," Denzel muttered, his voice cracking. And in a rare gesture, Traoré stood up on camera, placed his hand to his chest and said, "Thank you. From Africa, from the youth, from the freedom fighters. Thank you, Denzel Washington, for reminding us of our worth." The screen faded. The live audience remained in a stunned hush. Denzel wiped his eyes again. "You never know," he finally said. "You never know who's watching. You just hope you're doing something good with the gifts you've been given." But what most people watching didn't know was that this wasn't a random moment. It had been years in the making. Denzel Washington has always been more than an actor. Off-screen, he's known for his fierce advocacy for education, Black empowerment, and faith. He's funded scholarships, spoken at inner-city schools, and even paid for young actors to study abroad, quietly, with no publicity. But in recent years, Denzel's messages about self-discipline, moral responsibility, and refusing to compromise have found a second home, not just in the US, but across the African continent. And perhaps nowhere more strongly than in Burkina Faso, where Ibrahim Traoré has led a new kind of revolution. At just 34 years old, Traoré became Africa's youngest head of state in 2022, following a coup that ousted the previous military government. Unlike many who have seized power for personal gain, Traoré stunned the world by making bold decisions, removing French troops, cutting ties with colonial systems, and speaking openly against exploitation by multinational corporations. His speeches have been fiery, yes, but they have also echoed the cadence and moral clarity of voices like Malcolm X, Kwame Nkrumah, and yes, Denzel Washington. Insiders say that Traoré had long admired Denzel, watching Malcolm X dozens of times, reciting the speeches word for word. In his barracks, he'd often gather young soldiers and show them clips from Denzel's interviews about faith, integrity, and staying on the path even when it's hard. So this moment, the call, was not a publicity stunt. It was the closing of a circle, a moment where one man's artistic truth touched another man's political courage. And it happened live before the eyes of the world. After the show, social media exploded. Clips of Denzel's tears were shared on every platform. African youth posted videos with hashtags like #Thank you Denzel and #Africa salutes you. Even Western media couldn't help but cover it. Headlines read, Denzel Washington brought to tears by African leaders' surprise tribute, and Hollywood meets revolution, the moment that stunned America. But what was perhaps most profound was how the moment sparked a deeper conversation. In schools and universities from Harlem to Harare, students began talking about leadership, real leadership, about how courage doesn't always wear a suit or hold a mic. Sometimes it wears a uniform. Sometimes it's a voice in a film that awakens something deep within. Sometimes it's the power of storytelling that inspires a movement. And for Denzel, the moment changed him too. In a follow-up interview days later, he reflected quietly, "We act like we're just entertainers, but storytelling is sacred. It's how civilizations pass on their values. And when someone tells you that your story helped them stand taller, that's a responsibility you can't take lightly." He paused, looked at the camera, and added, "Ibrahim Traoré didn't just thank me. He reminded me why I do what I do, and I'll carry that with me for the rest of my life." There are moments in culture that ripple far beyond the screen. That moment between Denzel and Traoré was one of them. It wasn't about celebrity or power. It was about alignment, about two men shaped by different worlds, standing in the same truth. Since then, Denzel has reportedly begun conversations with filmmakers and African creatives to collaborate on a project highlighting African resistance and leadership. He's also announced plans to visit Burkina Faso next year, a move that has already sparked hope among youth and creatives across the continent. Meanwhile, Ibrahim Traoré's government has started including curated screenings of inspiring films, including Denzel's works, as part of youth leadership programs. His message to the youth is simple: see yourself in greatness and let that vision guide your life. So the next time you think a film is just entertainment, remember this: sometimes a performance becomes prophecy. Sometimes a scene changes a soul. And sometimes a man sitting in front of a camera receives a call that touches the heart of an entire generation. Denzel Washington cried that day, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming weight of purpose fulfilled. And the world cried with him.